Hi everyone, it's Sherry from the blog OurLifeHomeschooling.com, where I share homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. I want to talk to you today about homeschool overwhelm. What to do when you're in over your head. If you're new to my channel, my name is Sherry. I am a homeschooling mom to 10 kids. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Nelson. We've been married for 23 years. I'm a former public school teacher turned homeschool mom. I love encouraging other moms on my YouTube channel and on the blog, OurLifeHomeschooling.com. If you like the content that you see here, would you do me a favor and like and subscribe? What do you do when you're overwhelmed in homeschooling? I had a week like this about a week and a half ago. If you noticed, I did not post on YouTube last week. I had so much going on. I was part of a bundle deal over on Instagram, which was such an honor to be a part of. But I had never bought a bundle, let alone been a contributor to a bundle. I didn't exactly know what was involved, and just felt like I was a little out of my league. Really loved being a part of the process, learned so much. That was going on. I had a 2-year-old who was potty training. My husband was working some unusual shift work and had some additional reports that were due at work that was weighing on him, which in turn kind of weighs on me with some of the responsibilities I feel around here. Our 9-month-old kept me up one night until I think 3 in the morning teething. It was such an exhausting night. And all of our other children, of course, they all have individual needs, and I want to be there for each of them and listening and available. But everything this week just seemed ramped up. And like it was just one emergency after another. I would wake up 10 steps behind and trying to catch up all day and just leave the end of the night just getting in bed thinking, what have I done all day? That was my overwhelming week last week. And I'm sure I know that you can relate to what I'm talking to because we all have times like this. And the Lord showed me something really great during this time in my Bible reading, and I wanted to share that with you because I felt like it had a lot to do with some of the things that I felt overwhelmed with. It really related. If you want to do a study of someone who was constantly needed, who was surrounded by people, needy people, sick people, someone who large crowds of people were looking to him and asking him what there was to eat. If you want to do a study on someone who knows what it's like to be constantly surrounded by needs and to be overwhelmed, or someone who should have been overwhelmed, you should do a study on the life of Jesus, specifically in the book of Mark. Now, I had seen this before, years before. I knew Jesus was surrounded by crowds a lot, but as I was going through my Bible reading in Mark last week and I came to this spot, I was moved again. And I challenge you, if you want to know about someone that was always in a crowd, go through the book of Mark, the first several chapters, and just underline all the verses that talk about Jesus being in the crowd to the point that they were almost crushing him, to the point that there was no leisure for him to even eat. He was constantly surrounded, not just by people, but needy people. At one spot, it talks about the crowds crushing him. Another spot, it talks about how there was such a crowd gathered around him all the time that his family thought he was out of his mind. And they sent for him to try to get him back to reality. This kind of lifestyle really resonates with me because I find myself surrounded by kids and needs and just mundane household work and schoolwork and making appointments and all these things that are part of being a mom. And when I see that Jesus's life was so busy, he was always with people, and I watch how he responds to that, it's so encouraging to me because I know that motherhood is a ministry, and it can be viewed as a ministry if you look at it that way. I think if you look at it any other way, it can just be a drudgery. Who would want to spend their time always meeting the needs of people who can't do anything for themselves? But if you view motherhood as a ministry, it is so rewarding. Jesus was surrounded by sick people, hungry people, people that had questions for him, people that were criticizing him. This was his ministry. This is our ministry as moms. We are surrounded by our children and by people in the community that we have the opportunity to influence for good. So I want to challenge you again to literally get your Bible out and look through the first several chapters in Mark. I got up to, I think, 6. And just find all the places that refer to Jesus being in a crowd. When I was going through this, I found 2 responses that he had that really spoke to me, because I wanted to see if he's in a situation that feels so similar to mine. How did he respond? What did he do? You know, he didn't have this ministry that was just in this quiet little church building or synagogue where he was just, you know, slowly and quietly helping people through their difficulties. This was constant. It was all day long. It must be exhausting. How did he respond to this? The first thing that I observed was that Jesus went alone by himself to pray. In fact, there are verses, I don't have it listed right here, but where he sent the crowd away. He sent them away so that he could get alone to pray. In the first book of Mark, it says, verse 35, "And rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed." Now, I know as moms, sometimes it is almost impossible to get alone. You can't even get alone when you're in the bathroom. But there is often some time, somewhere in the day, where you can get alone. And when you're having that overwhelming moment, whether it's overwhelmed with schoolwork or with your kids fighting or with the housework, maybe relational issues that you have with your kids or your spouse, when you are overwhelmed, maybe it's the schedule. Sometimes the schedule and the busyness can really just get to me. When you're overwhelmed, get away from it all. However you need to do that. Sometimes for me, it's been after everyone's in bed. I can't fall asleep at night, and I will just spend any time that I can get alone in prayer, because this makes the biggest difference when we go to the one who is full of wisdom, full of strength, who can give us that true inner lasting peace, who can give us direction on how to respond to some of these problems that we're having and some of this overwhelm. Going to the Father is our true place of peace. And I think that when we look at the life of Jesus and we realize that as Christians, we're following him. He said, "Foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." This was his lifestyle. It was ministry. And he's the one we're following. If he was always in a crowd, then, maybe we're probably always going to be with people, and that can be exhausting. He said that anyone who would come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. So when you look at his life, he lived a life in full submission to the Father, complete obedience to the point of death. We can't expect our lives to be lives of ease, because the person we're following, he led a life that was a life of servant leadership. So if Jesus is the one that we're following, and he felt like it was important and necessary to send the crowds away, to get alone, to go pray to his Father, then how much more do we need to have this time where we set everything aside, where we tell the kids, even if you have to just put them in front of a screen for a little bit, whatever you have to do to get alone, to spend time with the Lord in prayer. The second response I noticed is in this same first chapter in Mark. First, he went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him, and they found him and said to him, "Everyone is looking for you." Does that sound familiar? Do you have kids that come up to you and say, "Where are you? Mom, I was wondering where you went." You leave the room, you think you've got on top of all that line or that list of things that you were just trying to get through, and you finally get to a spot and you think, "Okay, I think I'm caught up." And then someone sees you enter the room. "Oh, Mom, I wanted to ask you," or "Can I tell you the story?" or "Guess what happened?" And you just think, "Oh my word, I am never going to get to that place where I'm caught up." Simon came to Jesus and said, "Everyone is looking for you. This sounds so familiar to me." And Jesus' response, this was after he had spent the evening in prayer with his Father. His response was this. He said to them, "Let's go on to the next towns that I may preach there also, for that is why I came." He knew his purpose. He knew the work that his Father gave him to do. And he knew that there was work yet to be done. The second thing that we need to do as moms as we follow Jesus' example is to look ahead to the work that he's given us to do and put our hands to the plow. We can't be held back. We can't be stopped. We shouldn't let this busyness and this overwhelm discourage us to the point that it paralyzes us. There's work to be done. We are influencing the next generation. We are changing children's lives. We are growing adults who are going to be citizens, who are, Lord willing, going to be followers of Christ, who are going to be reaching their generation. We have work to do. And so we need to keep our hand to the plow. We need to keep spending that time alone with the Lord. And then when that time is over, we need to come out again, be among the crowds, be with the needs, be where we're constantly making meals and cleaning up and doing work that seems like we're just doing the same thing over and over again, because this is part of being with people. This is part of ministry, which is reaching into their lives and serving them, leading them by service. We have work to do as moms. I think when you realize the crucial nature of your job as a mom that's homeschooling her kids, that's reaching into their lives, we are redeeming culture. We're changing the thinking process of the next generation. We're giving them a biblical worldview to start from. There is so much work to be done. We need to keep our eyes on the goal and focus on the job that God has given us to do. When you feel overwhelmed in your homeschooling, get away by yourself to pray. And secondly, look ahead to the job God's given you to do and put your hand to the plow. I hope this has encouraged you. Please drop a note and let me know what you've done in seasons of overwhelm and share with others how the Lord has helped bring you through it. Thanks for listening today. Have a great week.